wasn't grown up in mind. But I wasn't grown up in mind. But I wasn't grown up in mind. Oh, oh, always. Oh, 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 but I wasn't grown up in mind. 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 Oh, oh, always. Oh, 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 always. Oh, 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 always. Oh, oh.
All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Zenfolio Live. I'm Robert with Zenfolio Customer Success, and I want to say thanks for joining us on the live stream today. Today, we're going to be talking about your post-shoot workflow and client proofing. So we're going to go through importing and backing up in Lightroom, file naming conventions, culling and keywording, exporting and uploading to Zenfolio. And then hopefully if I have time, I'm going to get into client proofing through order approval. Hey, if this is your first time hanging out with us, make sure you say hi to us in the chat. Let us know where you're from. We've got Dennis hanging out today, taking care of you guys in chat. So make sure that you show Dennis some love. He does a great job hanging out with me on Thursdays, answering your guys' questions, feeding me questions from you guys to answer live. So make sure that you guys show him some love. In the way of announcements, really quick, next week on Zenfolio Live, and I didn't update my notes, so I'm going to have to read it because I totally forgot to update the notes. But next week on Zenfolio Live, we're going to have staying true to yourself while successfully evolving your photography business with, I can't believe I'm saying this, guys, but Lou Freeman's going to be hanging out with us next week on Zenfolio Live. If you're not sure who Lou Freeman is, do yourself a favor, and when you hop off of this Zoom or off of YouTube today, do a quick search and check out Lou Freeman. She's an amazing photographer, one of the first female, actually not one of the first female photographer for Playboy. She's going to be hanging out with us tomorrow, talking about how she's staying true to herself and evolving her business. Next Wednesday, you guys, October 7th, mark it in your calendars, is Wide Angle Wednesday. That's going to be on Facebook and Zoom. We're going to have Laura Greer, Evan Chung, Jeff Cable hanging out with us, as well as some other people hanging out with us. We're going to be talking about photography gear, asking questions to them pertaining to gear, getting their feedback. So lots of cool stuff happening there. That's going to happen at 2 p.m. on Wednesday. So make sure you mark your calendars. If you're hanging out on YouTube, you can actually register for that event. Go down to the description below and look for the Wide Angle registration link. It will let you register for that event. Also, if you are on Zoom, you can go to the zenfolio.com/community/events link, and you can actually register for it there as well. I'm sure Dennis is going to be throwing a lot of those links out for you guys in chat. And then lastly, we are continuing to challenge you guys to share your photos on Facebook and Instagram. Let's brighten up some social media feeds. Let's show some really beautiful images. Let's inspire others. And when you're doing that, make sure that you use that hashtag Zenfolio Photographers for a chance for your image to be featured on one of our social media platforms, as well as possibly in the Zenfolio Live interview, or not interview, in the Zenfolio Live intro. And as you guys probably noticed, that was actually the intro that ran last week. My computer crashed out on me yesterday, and I've been spending the entire day getting everything back up. So you got back up and running. So make sure you guys bear with me through any kind of technical issues or disturbances. Let's see. Let me say hi to some of you guys who are hanging out with us. Let's see. We have Earl hanging out with us in chat on YouTube. Robert, Lloyd Gray, Michael, Dennis, Rocco. Hey guys, thanks for jumping over here and hanging out with us. If you guys have questions as we go through this, make sure you get them in the chat. I am going to be answering questions live as well. Also, looks like we have Corey Woods, Deborah Stevenson jumping on. And then in Zoom, we've got Barb Jones, Brandy, Carolyn, Charlie, Helene, or Helen. I always get that one wrong. James, Jim, Joanna, Keith. A lot of you guys hanging out with us on Zoom. Lynn, Mark, Nicole, Robert, Stan, Susan. Thank you guys for jumping on here and hanging out. Like I said, as we go through here, if you guys have questions, make sure you get those in the chat so we can get those answered live for you guys. And we're going to go ahead and just get this started. So we're going to start out talking about doing things in Lightroom, your post-shoot workflow. I know this is one of the things that I had to do a lot of research on when I was just getting into photography, getting things started, was trying to figure out post-shoot workflow, what I needed to do after the shoot, how I needed to organize things, how I needed to name things. And this is something, if you are just starting your photography business, if you're just getting involved in photography, this is definitely something that you want to research and get down sooner rather than later, because this is going to help you keep things organized, help you have a nice streamlined flow. And it's something that's nice to have that out the gate, so that way you don't have to try and organize or reorganize things later on down the road, or think, man, I wish I would have researched this just a little bit more. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Today, we're not going to start in Zenfolio. We're actually going to start in Lightroom. And this is going to be really fun, you guys, because I have a nice, squeaky, clean Lightroom, because again, my computer kind of crashed out on me yesterday. And so there's actually nothing in here, which actually kind of worked out pretty perfect for this episode, because I can show you guys all of this stuff from the beginning. So here is the scenario that we're going to run through. Okay. I have just done a shoot, and we're going to start at just back at the house, getting everything imported into Lightroom, kind of getting everything set up, and we're going to go from there. So the first thing that I'm going to do is start importing my photos into Lightroom. So I'm just going to go to Lightroom and go down and click that little import button right down here. And that is going to pull up the import dialog. And the first thing I'm going to do is kind of go through and find my source. In this case, it's my SD card that's plugged into my computer. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to go ahead and have it include subfolders. If you don't do that, then you kind of have to go in here and manually look for everything that's in here. So it's totally up to you how you want to do it, but there is something there that you can click to include the subfolders, and then you can just kind of click on the main folder and import everything that way. Okay, so now that we have these in here, you don't have to import all the photos if you don't want to. I'm not going to go through a lot of the Lightroom options, but there is a new photos option, which in this case, all of the photos are going to be new. But if this was the second or third time, maybe you had imported stuff off of this card and you just wanted to import the new photos, there is that option right here. But we're going to go back over here to all photos, and we would just leave all photos selected. Okay, so now what we're doing is we're going to go over here and talk about some of these options that we have over here, because one thing that is really important is backing up your images, right? As photographers, the worst thing to happen is to have all of our images on our computer hard drive or on a single external, and then something goes wrong with that and it crashes, and we totally just lose everything that we had. That's happened to me at least once. It was a hard lesson to learn, but I'm glad I learned it early. So one of the things that you can do when you're importing into Lightroom, and this is kind of the way that I do this, is you can go to File Handling, and you can actually tell Lightroom to make a second copy of this import. So if you have an external hooked up, you can go ahead and have Lightroom make a second copy of this during the import, kind of doing a backup to that external. I like to do it this way because I like to go ahead and back up all the images from that shoot. Now we are going to call the images down, but it's nice to have just a full backup, secondary backup of that shoot somewhere on an external hard drive. All right, and I'm using the copy option, so it is going to copy the photos. There are a couple of other options up here. You could do like copy as a DNG if you're shooting all in RAW. Now these are all JPEGs. Typically I would shoot in RAW, but these are just JPEG files. You can copy as a DNG, and what that will do is create it as a non-proprietary RAW file. So with Canon's RAW files are CR2s, Nikon's RAW files are NEFs. This is just going to copy it as a DNG, which is a non-proprietary RAW file. That's a hard word to say. Okay, so we're going to use the copy option. And then over here on the file handling, I would, if this was on my personal computer, on my personal system, I would use this, make a second copy too. And then I would go right over here. There's a little thing that says choose folder, and you get a little dialog that pops up that you could then go to your external hard drive or wherever you're going to be backing that up to and importing that as a secondary copy to have a backup right out the gate. So you have the images are still on your SD card. You're importing them into wherever your Lightroom catalog is stored, but then you're also creating an extra backup copy already on that external, and that backup copy is of the full shoot. So that's the situation that we're going to be in. Now, I'm not going to do that for this one, but that is my typical flow. All right. After that, we want to do some file renaming, right? Because it's not really helpful to have a bunch of images with file names that make no sense other than their sequence, right? So I don't remember what the default sequence is that comes out of the camera. I know I've updated mine to say like RC underscore 0 blah 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 dot NEF or .jpeg. I've updated that to have a custom file name. But when I'm importing in here, it's nice to go ahead and make a name or put a naming convention in place that actually makes sense. Now, there's lots of different opinions on what the naming convention should be. If you guys have a strong opinion on this matter, let us know in chat. I'm curious what your guys' opinions are on the naming convention. So let me know in chat if you guys have a strong opinion on how you, or just share with us how you particularly name your files. So the way that I prefer to do it is I prefer to have the client's name, a shoot type, the date of the shoot, and then a sequence number is the naming convention that I use. And what's really cool about Lightroom is that you can go to this file renaming option and you can do all this as you're importing, which is nice because then I don't have to do it later on and try to remember to do it. It imports it all in there. So I'm going to go to file renaming. And what I'm going to do is go right here and I'm going to, there's a bunch of default templates in here you can use, but you can actually create your own default template name. So I'm going to go right here to edit, and I'm just going to show you the template that I'm using. So I basically created my own custom template in here, and it's pretty easy to do. Let me just do this. So let's say that you were to have it set up like this, and you wanted to kind of create your own template. First thing that I like to have is custom text. I insert that. That's going to add that variable here. And then I'll do an underscore. I'll do the shoot name. I'll do an underscore. And then I will do the date right here. So I'm just going to add in the date. And there's several different options you can use. I know a lot of people like to use this way. A lot of people like to use different options. I kind of like it the way that I'm used to reading dates. So I like this first option right here, and I'll insert that. And then I'll just add another underscore really quick and then go right down here to numbering. And I'll say, let's do this in a sequence. And I always use the 00 sequence. I always use the 00 sequence in that. And then you can actually preview what this file is going to look like right up here. Okay, so you can actually see right here what that file name is going to look like. And now once you've set that up the first time, you can actually go up here and you can actually save the current setting as a new preset. Okay, so you can go in here and you can say, okay, let's save this as my ZenLive preset and hit create and done. And so now the next time you're in here, all you have to do is choose that ZenLive preset for your naming convention. And upon import, it's going to rename the files according to that naming convention. All right. So that is one of the things that's really nice about importing into Lightroom. And then if you have any kind of batch editing presets, you can apply them here. If you want to import them as black and white or whatever, you can do that. I typically do not do that. I want to import my files as they are in the camera, and then later on, I'm going to do some things to them. So I don't really worry about this. Now, one of the things that is in here is the metadata option. Okay. And in here, if you haven't created a preset yet, you can go to new preset. And what's really useful about this preset is that you can include your copyright information. So you can go down to the IPTC copyright and put in your copyright here. And then upon import, it's going to add your copyright into your images. Lots of people do that. I do not like this option because what I like to do is I like to put my copyright in my images in camera. So if you didn't know, most cameras these days have the option to actually go ahead and copyright your photo right in camera as you take it. And so that way, whenever you're exporting it, you're importing it anywhere, that copyright information is already written in your image from your camera. That way, if your computer crashes and you don't have time to reset everything up and you're in a hurry, you don't forget to add that copyright in here. Maybe you're editing and you have to borrow a friend's computer because you're out of town or something like that. Again, with that copyright information being put into your images within camera, it's an extra step that you don't have to remember to do. Another thing that's really important, if you ever purchase a used body, make sure that you go in and you check the custom copyright in that body, because the last thing that you want to do is be creating a bunch of beautiful images and adding somebody else's copyright into those images without really knowing it. Okay, so this is an option here. It's not really an option that I use, again, because I do that all in camera. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go back up to that file name because I didn't show you this. Over here, after you select your template, the place where you can add text actually shows up right here. So here's that custom text placeholder, and here's the shoot name placeholder. And so you can actually go in here and put whatever name you want. So let's say this is Kelly Lynn, and let's say this shoot was, I don't know, park portraits or whatever you want to call it, right? Park portraits, or maybe you want to do something simple like just this was a portrait session, this was a wedding, this was a fashion shoot. Keeping it simple wouldn't be a bad idea for the shoot type. All right, so I'm just going to put portrait here. And then we're going to go down and choose our destination for import. So I'm actually just going to import this into my pictures folder, and I'm going to click import. All right. And so now ideally what is happening is, if this is a big shoot, this is where I'm going and making coffee. Maybe I'm doing this right before I get ready to lay down for bed to let this kind of import everything and do all this kind of in the background while I'm going to sleep or making coffee or whatever. But what's going on in the background is normally when I'm doing this, what's going on in the background is it's renaming the files according to that naming convention. It is also importing them into my Lightroom catalog. And then at the same time as well, it's also creating a full backup of the shoot on that external hard drive. So all of that within a few minutes. And then what was really cool is you could set all that up to be presets. So it's pretty fast on the import. Okay. And so this is where we're at now. We're actually in the library here. And what we're going to do next is kind of talk about culling in here. So that would be my next step. I don't upload every single shot from the shoot. I mean, there's times that, we're out of focus. We are just not happy with the lighting. Maybe it was a test lighting shot. Maybe, who knows, right? But there's times where we need to look through our images and kind of handpick what the client sees. And so that's the next step that I do in this post-shoot workflow, is I kind of go into my culling. And I want to show you how I do that in Lightroom, because you can also cull and keyword at the same time. Okay, so this is where we are deciding what photos are we actually going to present to the clients and what photos are we not going to present to the clients. Okay, and so there's a couple of things that I like to do it this way. One of the things you do want to make sure of is up here in the top. Let me just drag this up so you guys can see the menu bar. Under photo, there's this option right here called Auto Advance. I like having this option checked because what this does is when you rank a photo, it actually automatically advances to the next image. And I'll show you what I mean by that here in a second. But this option is unchecked by default. So I like to go up here and make sure that this option is checked. Now, are any of you guys using auto advance? What are your, let us know in chat, what are your culling processes? I like to use the star ranking system, which I'm going to show you in a second, but let us know in chat how you guys are doing that. So we're going to make sure that the auto advanced is checked because I just unchecked it. And then let me drag this back down here and I will show you how I do the culling process. So basically what I'll do is just double click on a photo here in the library. And I only use the 1-star rating. So I rate every image that I want to keep with 1 star. That is how I do it, because now we have the images kind of up full screen. And then I just do 1 star and it advances to the next image right after I rated the photo. So any photo that I want to keep that I actually want to show the client, or maybe that I want to edit later, I'm rating as 1 star. So just clicking, and I'm using my keyboard to do this, just clicking the number 1 on my keyboard. Let's say this is one that I didn't like, so I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to click the right arrow and pass that one. And again, we're just kind of choosing images and rating them with the number key. And I'm just using the number 1. If you want to develop a system where the different star ratings have different numbers or whatever, that's totally up to you. This is just the process that I use. And I use it this way because I found it to be super simple. And I find that as long as I keep things simple, it helps me get things done. And I don't get hung up on trying to figure out all these complex processes. So let's say we don't like that one. We want this one. We don't like that one. Okay. And so that is it. Now we have gone through all of our images and rated them. So the next thing that I would do from this point is go back here, and I'm going to go up to the filters. Now, it's pretty easy to do with just these handful of photos because there's not a whole bunch. Usually, if it's from a shoot, there's anywhere from 30 to 40 to, depending on the type of shoot that you do, there could be, hundreds of photos to go through. But what I'll do is after that, I just kind of hit the grid and I go up here to the filters option and I just say, show me the photos that are rated. All right, and that's going to get rid of all of the photos that I didn't flag or that I didn't give that 1 to. And this is where I would begin getting ready to export these to upload them to Zenfolio for the client to actually go through and proof. Okay, now there's all kinds of other flagging tools you could use up here. I use the colors sometimes in my editing process, where if I'm editing something and going back and forth with a client, I kind of use the color process for that. Lots of different ways to do it. But this is kind of the most simple way that I've found. Now, one of the things that I didn't talk about is during that culling process, you can actually keyword your photos as well. So if you go over here and you go to the keywording, you can use a keyword set. And as you're culling these images, you could have keywords set up here to actually click and keyword these photos. So if I was like, oh, that's an outdoor, let's see, where's portrait? Oh, this isn't the portrait set. That's an outdoor. I don't know. We'll say candid. I know it's not candid, but we can do that. That way you can keyword right as you're going through and actually culling the images, which is really nice. And that's something that's super important to do. Now, typically when I keyword photos, I kind of do it 2 different ways. If this is a client shoot, I have a keyword set for client shoots. And really the only keyword that is in that client set is the word portfolio, because as I'm going through client images, if there are images that I come up with or I come across that I want to add to my portfolio, I'll just keyword it with portfolio really quickly, and it will add that image to a smart collection. If you're not familiar with smart collections, do yourself a favor and check those out. They're super powerful and useful. Basically, it collects images based on criteria. And so that is what I do for my client shoots, is I basically just add 1 keyword, portfolio, or I don't add that keyword if I don't want to use the image for portfolio. Now for other shoots, like for personal projects, landscapes, and things like that, I will do serious keywording because all of those images are going to be public and I want those to have as much keywords in there, as relevant keywords as I have in there. Okay. And so that is how I do that. Now, again, let's go back and view this. And so just to kind of give you the situation that we're in now, we are looking at the photos that we have identified that are keepers that we want to show our clients. We have them all selected here. The next thing that I would do is go and actually export these. So what I'm going to do is just select these images right here. I just did a quick Command A, select all of those, go to export. And then I actually have a preset right over here that I've developed for exporting to Zenfolio. This actually just exports the folder to my desktop, and then I upload it, drag it, and upload it into Zenfolio. But if you haven't developed a preset yet, I definitely recommend that you do that. But basically, this is set up to export to my desktop. I can come in here and give it a name. So let's say this is Kelly Lynn Portraits. Okay, and then we're going to go down here. I'm not going to do the file naming because I've already done that in import. And the reason again that I do the file naming and import is because I'm also creating that backup, and now these file names match that backup as well, which is kind of nice. Now I'm going to go down here and just all of this stuff I just kind of leave set to be the full image sizing, all of that. I usually typically do upload the full resolution JPEG file for client proofing just to have it on there. You can, if you're doing order approval, you can definitely leave this set or you can change this to downsize the images if you want. Just keep in mind that during order approval, you are going to have to swap the photos out with higher resolution images. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just export this. And again, this is kind of one of those times where if it's a large shoot and there's a lot of images, I am walking away from my computer. Maybe I'm answering emails. Maybe I'm going and making another cup of coffee, talking to my kid, doing something while this is kind of doing its own thing. And I'm just kind of stepping away. Okay. So up to this point, what we've done is we've imported our images. We've renamed them. We've also backed them up already to our external hard drive. We've called the images, identified the ones that we actually want to show to the client. And now those images have been exported and are on our desktop, ready to upload to Zenfolio. And so that's the next part of this process, is that we're going to go in here and upload these to Zenfolio. So let me pull up my Zenfolio account really quick. Let's see, let's go here. There we go. Okay. And I actually have already uploaded this shoot just because I didn't want to do the upload while I was live streaming, because live streaming takes a lot of bandwidth, and live streaming takes up a lot of bandwidth, and I didn't want to be live streaming and uploading at the same exact time. So I've actually already uploaded these, but just to show you really quick, what I do is I go into my clients folder, and I will go to the group that I have for the year, expand that group. I'll go find the appropriate sub-client group. So in this case, it's going to the portraits folder, and I'll click on that, hit upload, and then we just go find that folder. In this case, again, it's on my desktop, and I'm just going to actually drag it and drop it right in here and upload that. And that's going to create a new gallery in that appropriate client subgroup. Now, I'm not going to upload this. As I mentioned, I've already got them uploaded. So we're going to leave the page and go back. Okay, so here is that client gallery, and it's already uploaded. The next step is to make sure that there's a price list attached. Now, if you guys have hung out on any of the group trainings with me, especially the advanced training, I show you how to apply price lists to the folders so that as soon as you upload a gallery to its appropriate folder, it automatically gets a price list applied upon upload. If you're not familiar with how to do that, it's super simple. You just click on a group, and a group is basically a folder here in Zenfolio. You click on that, and then once you're clicked on that, you're going to go to price list, say allow ordering from my price list, and then apply whatever price list you want to that particular group or folder in Zenfolio. And now from that point on, anything new that I upload in there will automatically take that price list on. So it's kind of a way to automate that process, so that that's one less thing that you have to think about and remember. Because the next process for me after uploading this is I'm going to email this to the gallery out to the client. Okay, so I'm going to click on the newly uploaded gallery, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over to email gallery. And this is why I love this option, because I'm not going to send it to the client right now, because chances are right now in reality, it's probably like midnight by the time I get all this done. After, I went and did the shoot, come home, spend some time with the family, have dinner, hang out for a little bit, go through this process and get everything uploaded. It's not the time that I want to email my clients. But I also know that if I don't do it right now, I'm going to forget tomorrow. So that's why I love this process, is because I can say, okay, let's email the client tomorrow. And I know they take lunch at about noon. So let's hit them up at noon. And then I'm going to go down here and just put in their email. We'll just say Rob, or we'll say this was Kelly, right? Yeah, Kelly at yopmail.com. We'll put in her email. If I wanted to add any extra information in here, I could do that. Hit continue to preview. It's going to show you a preview of this email. And then you just hit schedule email and I go to bed. And then tomorrow at that time, that client's going to get that email. Now, one thing you can do here as well is you can set this to send you a copy of the message, which is kind of a nice reminder. You're going to get an email, a copy of the email that the client gets sent to you at the same time. It's a nice reminder. Hey, the client's getting their gallery email. Maybe in an hour or two, you might want to call and check up on them and just make sure that they got the email, ask them if they have any questions. But it's just nice to get that reminder. So that is the flow that I use. Okay. So now, the client goes into the gallery, and this is the flow that I use with my clients for client proofing. So we're going to kind of transition to client proofing now. Okay. There's several different methods to client proof. There is using the Zenfolio favorites. If you're not familiar with that feature, you could definitely do a quick search for it on our YouTube channel. There are several videos on that. I like to client proof using the order approval option. All right. And for those of you guys who are not familiar with order approval, it is an option that lives in your price list. So if we go into price list really quick and I go to the price list that is applied to that gallery, under price list settings, there is an option right over here, price list settings. There's an option right over here called approval settings. And whenever you create a price list by default, this option is set to none. Okay, that's the default setting. And what that means is that when your clients go and they place their orders, they are going to be charged at the time they place that order. You're going to get an email letting you know that there's an order. However, that order is going to kind of sit there in a limbo state and not really do anything. You're going to get an email. You'll also get a link in your account that looks like this. And you actually have to click on that link in your email or click on this notification, go in and review the order and then approve it. So this is how you can do client proofing through order approval. What I do is I tell my clients, hey, your images or your galleries are ready. All of your images have been uploaded. Now, these have been uploaded with very minimal editing, no like individual post-processing or anything like that. Go ahead, go in there, purchase the images that you want, and I will touch them up and edit them before they actually go to print. So this way, I don't have to do a bunch of back and forth with my clients. They go in there, they purchase the images. The images are kind of sitting there in a limbo state. I can then download those images, upload those, and re-upload those into that order. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Now, if you don't want to use order approval and you want to do proofing a different way, you can totally do that. There's favorites that are available. And if you don't want to have to approve every single order, you can set the price list so that all the orders go through. And this is a setting that can be turned on and off individually per price list. So you can have price lists set up to where you do have to approve the order. And then you can also have price lists set up where you do not have to approve the order. So it can be changed on an individual price list level. Really powerful feature as long as you understand how to use it. But for this one, I'm going to set it back to none because I want to be able to approve the order. Okay, so we're going to fast forward a little bit. The situation that we're going to be in is we've emailed the client their images. They have gone in and they have made their purchases. We got the email, we got the link. We're ready to go in and actually look at these images and see if we need to do any touching up or anything like that. So I'm going to click right here. That is going to take me to where all of the orders that I haven't approved are. We're going to click on that order number right here. And this is where you can see what images have been ordered right here. And so again, this is where that naming convention is really nice, because now if we have a bunch of orders in here, now I can look at it and I can say, okay, this is from April Kelly's fall portrait shoot on October 27th. So really easy to find that right away in my Lightroom catalog because of the naming convention. All right. And in order approval, there's actually this option to change photo. Okay. So let's say that we now need to upload all of these photos, or we need to change all of these photos out with edited versions. Okay. So up here at the top, there is an option to export this order right here. Um, and what this will do is this will actually let me export a list of these images, and then I can just pull those images up right in Lightroom without having to remember all of these images and go back and find them. Okay, I believe that this is an advanced only option. Dennis, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is an advanced only option to export the order. So if you don't see this, you will have to upgrade to the advanced plan to get this feature. And there's actually a free plugin that you can download to let you do this. So you're going to go download the plugin, put that plugin in Lightroom, and then I'm going to show you how it will work. So I'm going to go ahead and just download this. And Dennis is verified it is an advanced only feature. Okay, so I just downloaded that CSV file, and basically all that is that is a CSV file. I'll show you right here in the ugly version. It just shows, oops, it just shows all of the images that were in that order. Okay, and this is the ugly version of a CSV file. Normally you'd be looking at it like in a spreadsheet form. Okay, now this is not what you're going to use, because you're going to go in Lightroom, and in Lightroom, you're going to go up to File, and then we're going to go to Plugin Extras, and this is where the Zenfolio Image List Import plugin is. Okay, now again, you do need to download that plugin. So let me just go back really quick, and what I'll do for you guys before I forget about it is I'll actually throw the link in both chats for this plugin so you guys can just go get it. So let me get that for you guys here. We just open this in a new, we'll do a new window, and I'll copy this, and I will just throw this out for you guys on YouTube and on Zoom, so you guys have the link to this. All right, and if you're not sure how to install plugins in Lightroom, there are instructions on that page that will show you how to install it and how to use the plugin. All right, this is a really, really powerful plugin because it pulls all of the images for that order for you up right in Lightroom. So let's go into Lightroom, and assuming that it was a really big shoot, assuming that we have a really big catalog and not just this small, tiny one, obviously it would be super easy to do with this one, but we're assuming again that we have a really big catalog in here, lots of images. So we would go use that plugin. We go to File, Plugin Extras, Import Image List, and then all you have to do is go find that list that you downloaded. Okay, so in this case, right here is the list that I downloaded. Okay, that's that order, and you can see it has the actual Zenfolio order number in it. We can choose that, and it will say, oh, you know what? It won't work because that collection or that order number is from a different one that I did earlier when I was getting all this set up. So the images are no longer there. But what that would do is that would pull all of the images together, and it would basically create a smart collection right down here that you could click on. Okay. And so you would click on that collection, go through, do your edits and stuff like that. After you do that, you would go export those images somewhere on your hard drive, however you want to do it. And then what I prefer to do is I actually prefer to upload the edited versions in a separate folder. So let's say that this client purchased a bunch of photos and then they said, hey, can you make these black and white for me? Okay. So what I'll do is I have a folder called Website Assets. All right, and it doesn't really make sense why I do it this way now, but once you start doing this process, you will understand why I create a separate folder and do it this way. So we're going to go in here, and I have another folder called Replacement Photos, and that is where I would then upload the edited black and white versions of those images right in here. Okay. So we have the edited versions now uploaded into a separate gallery that's private. We're going to go back into that order. And what we're going to do in that order is, if I can get to it, my computer is starting to cry. I'm not sure why. Let's see if I can get to it here. There we go. Okay, we're going to get into that order. And now we need to swap these out with the edited versions. Okay, so we would just go down here and click this little change photo button. And this little window is going to pop up right here. And the reason that I upload the edited versions in a separate gallery is because if the edits were really small differences, like maybe doing some facial touch up or something like that, it's going to be really hard to tell if you're in a gallery that has a lot of images and some of the images look the same. One's just the edit, one's not the edit. Obviously, you could look at the names if you did a naming convention for that. But this is why I like to do the edited versions in a different gallery, because then I go to select gallery. I go down to replacement photos, select that one. And now I know that these are all the edited versions and I don't make a mistake. And so now I'm just going to click on this image and I'm going to say, okay, this one, here's the edited version of that. This one, here's the edited version of that one. This one, edited version right here. That one is right here. And you'll notice it's automatically progressing to the next photo. So we're going to keep moving on. Here's the next one here. And then here's that one. And right here is this one. And I think it's this one. I'm not sure which one it is. We'll just pick that one. All right. And then the other option is you can replace the original file or just replace it for this order only. So this kind of does two things at once for you. If you choose this option, it's actually going to replace the original file in the gallery as well as replace the images in the order. So it's going to kind of do two things at once. Typically, that is the option that I use because I like for those edited versions to go ahead and go out to the client gallery as well, in case the client's placing reorders later on down the road or anything like that. For this option, though, I'm just going to use the replace this for this order only because I don't want to push all those black and whites out to the client gallery. All right. And so now you're going to see right here, this is exactly, we've had all these photos changed. Now, if you realize you make a mistake, or maybe they're like, no, never mind, I changed my mind, I just want them the way they were, you can reset all the changes here. Okay, but that is basically how you do that part, and then you approve that order, and now those images have been changed with the edited versions, and the order goes to the lab, it gets printed, produced, and drop shipped out to your client. All right, guys, I'm sorry I went so long today. A lot of stuff to cover. And again, I spent a lot of time getting my computer back up. I'm going to take a really quick break. I'm going to have Dennis come on and chat with you guys for a second. I'm going to take a break, grab some tea because my voice is getting a little tired. And then you guys keep putting your questions in. We still have 20 minutes. That is a long time for me to answer questions. So I am going to take a quick break. Dennis is going to hop on here and talk to you guys for a second, and then I'll be back to answer all of your questions live. All right, take it away, Dennis.
There I am. Hello, everyone. Hello. Hi, I'm Dennis with Zenfolio Customer Success. Again, welcome, everyone. Thank you all for hanging out with us this Thursday for our weekly Zenfolio Live. We're happy to take your Zenfolio related questions, answer them live. So let us know if you've any questions. You can either enter them in the chat, or if you join using Zoom, you may use the Q&A button so you can share those questions with us. And Robert or myself will be happy to get answers to you. Before I hand it off back to Robert, you can also visit our YouTube page to register for our live event, so that way you don't miss anything, and you can check in again next week with us and join our discussions as we pretty much feature different topics. We invite special guests for open discussions, so you can really have a lot of fun with us. So check in again. And also register to join us for next week for our first ever Wide Angle Wednesdays. That should be fun, where we talk about all things photography. And I think we'll be discussing the must-have photography gear. So that should be really, really interesting. So check in with us. we'll be very happy to have everyone join and participate. Thanks again. Take care, everyone. Thanks. And back to you, Robert.
All right. Thank you, Dennis. Again, thank you so much for hanging out with me on Thursdays. I really appreciate it. He got a little bit of a late warning earlier today. I was like, hey, today is Richard's day to moderate, but unfortunately, Richard's not feeling well today. So I kind of told Dennis like in the last minute I needed him to mod. He jumped on without a problem. So I really appreciate it. Make sure you guys send Richard make sure you send them your healing thoughts, and hopefully they are feeling better soon. Okay, let me talk to you guys in chat for a minute. Let me see. I got so many windows open. Let's see. Lots of questions. Who do we have jump on while I was doing this? Corey Woods, Lorna Perez. Hey, Doug. Thanks for jumping on here. Doug Gabbard. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Earl, and let's see. Who else is hanging out with us? Lots of questions. All right. Well, I'm going to grab your questions because I know I talked a lot and I don't want to waste any more time. So if you have more questions, make sure you're getting those in the chat. This first question says, so if it's a scenic photo, would you name it where you took the shot at? Yeah, absolutely. That's probably what I would do. Maybe I would name it for where the shot was at, maybe the date in there. Just think about what the name, when you're naming things, you need to think about, okay, if I'm looking at my files for some reason in a list view, what information do I need to be able to see really quickly and to understand? But also file names, when you upload into Zenfolio, also they get that file name can be applied as your title on your image. So if there's a setting in your account, if you go to account, there's a setting down under upload settings right here where it says, and it should be on by default for most everybody, but you might want to check it. It will say apply your file name as your photo title right here. You want to make sure that's checked. What that does is that takes your file name and makes it the image's title as well on Zenfolio. And that's super helpful because for things like landscape photos or your portfolio images, if you're titling it with relevant information such as the location, the subject matter, different things like that, all of that text information matters. It means something. And so that is good information to put in there. Now, if you are doing it for a client shoot, thinking about that naming convention and about any kind of back and forth that you might have to do with the client. Maybe the client picks up the phone and they call you and they're looking at the gallery. Wouldn't it be really nice if your client could say, hey, I'm in my gallery and I'm looking at the this image, and you're like, well, which image exactly are you looking at? And they're like, oh, it's April Kelly, blah, 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 001. And you know right away what file it is because of the naming conventions on there. So that is why I think that naming convention is really important. And just to go back and specifically answer that question, yes, I would definitely put the location of the lands. If you're shooting landscape or whatever it is, I would definitely put the name of the location in the file name for sure. All right. Corey Woods, do you set up keywords in Lightroom first, then select them during culling? Absolutely. So what I'd like to do is I like to have my Lightroom keywords set up already ready to go. I like to use that keyword set in there. You can also import some lists. So I found this link earlier and I was going to include it in the show notes. But there's actually a place you can go and download this giant list of Lightroom keywords. It's all nicely organized in all of these different sub-organizations, completely free. It's like I think it's Lightroom open source keyword project or something like that. I would definitely go check that out. But if I'm already looking at the image kind of in a full screen scenario doing the culling, and I have my keywords set up correctly over on the right-hand side, I like to just go ahead and keyword right then. Now, again, when I'm keywording client photos, I'm really only using the keyword tool because I want to include that image in my portfolio. So if there's a really nice image in a client shoot, then what I will do is I'll say, oh, that one would be good for my portfolio, and I add the portfolio keyword to it, and it goes into that smart collection. That's the only real keywording that I do for client shoots because most of the client shoots are going to be password protected anyway. But when it comes to personal projects, landscape, abandoned house hunting or urban exploration photos, definitely do a lot more intensive keywording as I'm kind of culling the images and deciding which ones I want to edit. Now, During the editing process, do I go back and add more? Maybe, depending on how I edit that shoot or edit that particular image. But I like to do a lot of it right there at the get-go. Great question, though. Okay. This question is, why do my photos upload to Zen numerically backwards? That is a great question. Now, I don't know if you're talking about actually during the upload, but you can go in and you can change this in here. Now, one of the things is when you are naming your files and you're using a sequence, if you don't do that 001, then the files can show up in a weird order, because then it will look at 10 and it'll put 20, it'll put like 10 above the 2 or something like that. So that's why I always set up that sequence to have the 00 in front of it, because if you don't do that and you just use a single digit sequence, it can really throw off the sort order a lot of different ways in that. But you can also go over here as well, and you can change the sort right over here. You can sort A to Z, Z to A, and you can sort by file name right here. Okay, and so obviously A to Z would be, the file name would be in alphabetical order. If we do Z to A, it's going to change all of that stuff up. So you can see right over here, it will change all that sort ordering. Okay, but that's probably why, if you're not using that 00 on that naming convention. Great question. Let's see. When you make a virtual copy in Lightroom, how can you keep the same file sequence number? I don't like changing it to a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sequence. Hey, Shelly, that's a great question. I'm not really sure on that. I usually, whenever I make a virtual copy and just do like an edit or something, that usually I just do like edit, or I have the little 1 or something like that. I'm not sure if there's a default setting that you can change, or maybe a preset that you can make. I wish I had the answer to that question. I'm sure there's probably a YouTube tutorial that will cover that. I just don't know right off the top of my head. Let's see, Robert. If I will be selling photos, frame photos from my website portfolio, I do not do client shoots. Would it be easier to set the order approval process to no approval required to save time? That's a good question. So, Robert, it really depends. I would say that if you have been very strategic with how you have set up your price list, if you have thought about things like the aspect ratio of your images and the aspect ratio of the products that you offer, and you've built a really solid price list that takes all that into consideration, then I would say it might be okay to go ahead and turn that order approval off. That way you don't have to worry about approving everything. As long as you've really thought out your price list and built them really strategically. Because the last thing that you want to do is turn that order approval off, a client go and buy a panoramic image that you've shot, and they purchase it as an 8x10 because they have no idea what the difference is between a panoramic image and an 8x10, and they don't understand why you can't squeeze this giant image into an 8x10 and make it look exactly the way they saw it online, even though the shape's completely different. So that's why typically I like to keep that order approval option set to none, so that I do have to approve the orders for things like that, just because even with a really well thought out price list, occasionally you can run into some issues, like maybe you forgot to crop that image to the correct aspect ratio, and now somebody's ordering a print and you catch it in order approval, and you can actually fix the crop or change the image out. But if you are really sure that your price list is set up really well, you're confident in the aspect ratio, all that stuff's going to match, and you've really been strategic with it, then I would say you could probably go ahead and set the orders to automatically go through. I would never do that with a client gallery, but with like fine art or with landscape or something like that, you could definitely do that. Also, when it comes to volume photography, that's a different story. You could definitely do it with volume photography as well. Client cropping is another thing, though. If you're letting your clients crop the photos, you probably definitely want to make sure that you're reviewing the orders. And if you're not sure how to control those options, there is a video on our YouTube channel. It is called How to Get Started Selling on Zenfolio. It is a complete walkthrough of setting up a price list where I talk about all of that stuff. And it's got timestamps in it. You can definitely go check that out. You can see how to turn all those options off. Let's see, from Nancy on Zoom, she says, I photograph with multiple cameras during a wedding and export with a sequence file and original file name structure. I am assuming Lightroom will not be able to locate the images in my catalog. I do my orders. I'm assuming that Lightroom will not be able to locate the original images in my catalog. I do my orders in the same way Robert is showing now, by uploading a replacement gallery. So you shoot from multiple cameras. You export with a sequence and file and original. It should find it, Nancy, because no matter what photo the clients order, when you export that list, it's going to export the file name with that list, and that's what actually uses to pull that image up in Lightroom. So it should find it. I don't see a reason why it wouldn't. Now, I've never ran into that particular scenario. I've never had multiple cameras coming in and tried that. But I would assume, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't work. I would at least test it and try it out and see if it's giving you issues, but it should work. I don't see why it wouldn't. Okay, let's see. How do you import 2 or more separate shoots or topics from one SD card? So if I have several shoots on one SD card, then I just import in multiple iterations. Or in that case, I might wait and rename after the import. It just really depends on what's going on. If I need to walk away from my computer, like if it's at the end of the day, Robert, and I need to walk away from my computer and I just want to get everything imported and backed up, then I will just go ahead and import everything, have it create that backup. And then tomorrow when I'm doing my culling, I'll go through and I'll rename the files separately that way. But if I've got a few minutes, then I'll import, re-import, and do the separate naming conventions for the different shoots or the different topics. That's how I do it. Not sure if there's another way to do it or not. If you guys have another solution to that, definitely let me know. Okay, let's see. How much time do I have? 5 minutes left. A lot of questions coming in. Let me see if I can get to these really quick. How does the feature and guest book look like on a portfolio? Where will it appear? So on a portfolio, it's going to look just like a gallery. Your portfolios are just galleries, right? It's just that you're calling them portfolios. And where the guest book is going to appear is going to be dependent upon the layout, depending on if you have that option show or not. I don't have time to really jump into there and show you that. What I would say is I would recommend that you turn that guest book off, or at least understand the moderating options to it. Because if you have a guest book that's allowed, where it has public access, where people can just go in there and write things and you're not moderating those, you end up with a lot of spam. And so I would definitely recommend that if you are going to show that guest book, make sure that you have the option to moderate it on. There are several help, I don't know why I couldn't say that word. That's hard to say. Several help articles on that. So I'm sure I can get Dennis to throw those out to you guys on chat. Let's see. Let me go back. Let me see if I can answer all these questions. Do you ever go back and renumber the sequence numbers before you send to the client? In the past, I didn't get clients asking to see all the photos since they noticed. Oh, so yeah. So typically what I tell you, I get what you're saying. So when I do the culling and I remove some images, the client might see, oh, well, there's a 0, 1, and then it goes to 0, 4. What happened to the images in between there? And normally what I will tell them is I'll tell them, hey, sometimes some of the photos are just photos that I was taking to test the lighting. It might have just been a bad photo where I was, an accidental photo, different things like that. So it really depends on your relationship with the clients. I am okay with telling my clients, hey, it goes from 01 to 04 because 02 and 03 were out of focus. My flash didn't fire, or whatever, right? I'm okay with telling them that, but it just depends on your relationship with the clients. If your clients, if you don't want to tell them that, then you could definitely say something like, oh, those were my test shots. I was getting my white balance, lots of things that you can say. Or if you want to, you can always go back and rename them. It's pretty easy to do it. Once you're in Lightroom, you can go back and resequence the names. I would just make sure that you definitely do that before you upload to Zenfolio. That way, if you're using that export list, the file names all match and we don't see that issue that I had earlier. Okay, great question though. This one is from Lorna. She says, I'm new to client orders. Can you briefly explain how the payments on client orders are different than different to book me payments? Well, client orders can basically are basically be vendor fulfilled, or they can be self-fulfilled depending on what you're selling, right? So the difference between client orders and book me is that client orders are for things like ordering prints, whether it's again vendor fulfilled or self-fulfilled products, digital downloads, different things like that, actual products. Whereas when you're using book me, that is them actually booking a session with you. So there's not actually any physical tangible products changing hands. They're just basically booking or paying for a session with you. And so that is kind of the difference of the two. Hopefully that answered your question. Unfortunately, guys, we are running out of time. So I do want to say thank you guys so much to everybody who hung out with me today. Let's see. Who do we have on Zenfolio? Robert, Deborah, Lorna, Earl, Corey. Let's see who else. Shelly, Michael, Doug, Michelle, all of you guys, thanks for hanging out with me today. And then on Zoom, Carolyn, Helene, or I always say it wrong. Helene, James, Jim, Earl, D'Angela, Brandy, a lot of you guys hanging out with us. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today. Hopefully this was helpful. Make sure that you click the like button for me. I appreciate it. It lets us know what content you like, what you think is relevant, what you think is important. So definitely click that like button. Hey, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure that you click the subscribe button. If you're hanging out with us in Zoom and you want to watch the recorded version of this, you're going to get an email tomorrow that'll have a link to the recorded version out on our YouTube channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, the recorded version is going to be published to YouTube in the Zenfolio Live archive playlist. You can actually check out that link right now. It's in the description below this video. Don't forget, next week we're going to do Site Review Tuesday on Tuesday, and then Zenfolio Live, we're going to have Lou Freeman on, so definitely make sure you want to come check that out. And Wednesday, Wide Angle Wednesday on Facebook, make sure that you register for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Until then, I hope that you guys have a wonderful weekend. Make sure that you go do something nice for somebody, go lift somebody up, encourage somebody, help somebody out. Let's all work together to make this world a better place, because it could really, really, really use it right now. Thank you guys so much. Have a great weekend. I'll see you guys again on Tuesday.